In 1696, the smartest man who had ever lived was not in a laboratory. He was not staring at the stars. He was sitting in a dingy London courtroom, personally hunting down counterfeiters and making sure they hanged for it. This is the same man history remembers for a falling apple and a polite little equation about gravity. What most people don't know is that Isaac Newton spent years of his life obsessed with forging metal into gold, accused his closest rivals of stealing his ideas, secretly rigged an independent investigation to clear his own name, and may have slowly poisoned himself chasing a secret most scientists today would call complete nonsense. He didn't just discover how the universe works, he nearly lost his mind trying to control it. So here's the real question. How did a sickly, abandoned, friendless child from the English countryside grow up to rewrite the laws of physics and still spend half his life consumed by jealousy, secrecy, and revenge? Was Isaac Newton a genius who happened to be cruel? Or was the cruelty actually the secret ingredient that made the genius possible? Stick around. The answer is stranger than you think. Christmas Day, 1642. A baby is born in a small farmhouse in Woolsthorpe, England. So premature and so small that, according to his own mother, he could have fit inside a quart-sized mug. Nobody expected him to survive the week. His father had died 3 months earlier. When Newton was 3, his mother remarried and left him behind with his grandmother to go raise a new family. Newton would later write that he once fantasized about burning his stepfather's house down, with his mother and stepfather inside. Let that sink in. This wasn't a warm, nurturing childhood that produced a well-adjusted genius. This was an abandoned, friendless kid who grew up trusting almost no one. And that detail matters more than any apple tree ever will. By the time he reached Cambridge University, Newton was so poor he had to work as a subsizer, basically an unpaid servant to wealthier students, cleaning their rooms and emptying their chamber pots just to afford his own education. Imagine showing up to your dream university only to find out you have to be everyone else's maid just to stay enrolled. That was Newton's reality. He had every reason to feel like an outsider. But this is where things get strange. In 1665, the Great Plague swept through London, and Cambridge shut its doors. Newton, just 22 years old, was sent home to the family farm with absolutely nothing to do. No professors, no classmates, no distractions. Just an empty farmhouse and a mind that refused to sit still. Historians now call the next 18 months Newton's Year of Wonders. Working completely alone, with no internet, no calculator, not even reliable candles, this one isolated young man invented the foundations of calculus, worked out the basic mathematics of gravity, used a prism to prove that white light is actually made of every color combined. To put that in modern terms, imagine the most disruptive tech founder you can think of, locked alone in a garage for a year and a half. And instead of inventing one app, he invents 3 entire fields of science before his 25th birthday. That's what happened on a sheep farm in rural England. And yes, the Apple story is real. Sort of. Newton later said that watching an apple fall got him thinking about whether the same force pulling it down might extend all the way to the moon. It almost certainly did not bonk him on the head like the cartoons love to show. But the question it sparked? That question rewired human understanding of the universe forever. Here's the twist nobody tells you. Newton didn't publish any of this. Not for years, not for decades in some cases. He sat on some of the most important discoveries in human history simply because he didn't trust anyone enough to share them. And this is the part most history books leave out. Newton's secrecy wasn't just shyness, it curdled into something much darker. When the brilliant scientist Robert Hooke challenged some of Newton's ideas about light, Newton didn't just disagree, He disappeared from public scientific life for years out of sheer resentment. Decades later, when Hooke died, Newton, by then the most powerful man in British science, allegedly made sure Hooke's portrait vanished from the Royal Society's collection. To this day, nobody knows what he looked like. Then came the fight that truly defines Newton's dark side, the calculus war with the German genius Gottfried Leibniz. Both men had developed similar mathematical systems independently around the same time. Instead of sharing credit like reasonable adults, Newton used his position as president of the Royal Society to set up an independent committee to investigate who deserved the credit. The investigation was secretly written by Newton himself. It's the historical equivalent of suing your business rival, then secretly being the judge, the jury, and ghostwriting the verdict, all while publicly claiming you had nothing to do with the case. But the real story is even darker. Around 1693, Newton suffered what looked like a complete nervous breakdown. He stopped sleeping, he accused friends of betraying him, he wrote unhinged letters and then tried to take them back. Why? Many historians point to one detail Newton hid for most of his life. He was secretly obsessed with alchemy, the ancient debunked dream of turning ordinary metal into gold. He spent years quietly mixing and heating toxic substances, including mercury, in private experiments he never told the public about. The man who explained gravity to the entire world may have spent decades slowly poisoning his own brain, chasing a secret that didn't even exist. The worst was yet to come, just not for Newton, for everyone else. In 1696, Newton took a job as warden of the Royal Mint, essentially becoming the man in charge of England's money supply. England's coins at the time were a disaster, clipped, shaved, and endlessly counterfeited. Newton treated this like a personal crusade. He went undercover in taverns and prisons to gather intelligence. He pursued one master counterfeiter, William Challoner, with an obsession that bordered on personal vendetta, and eventually got him sentenced to death. Think about that for a second. This is the same man who calculated the orbits of planets, spending his evenings disguised in pubs, hunting down forgers like a 17th century detective with infinite resources and zero mercy. By the time Newton published his masterpiece, the Principia Mathematica, in 1687, he had essentially written the operating manual for the physical universe, the laws of motion and gravity that would run unchallenged for the next 300 years, until a man named Einstein finally found the edges of what Newton missed. So, was Newton a genius who happened to be cruel? Or was the cruelty part of the formula? Here's the uncomfortable truth. The same obsessive, secretive, almost paranoid mind that made Newton hoard grudges for decades is the exact mind that let him sit alone with a problem for 18 months without giving up. The trait that made him vicious to rivals also made him relentless with the universe itself. Sound familiar? It should. Modern tech and science are still full of brilliant people locked in bitter, ego-driven feuds over who invented what first. Patent wars, I thought of it first, lawsuits, founders who can't share credit any more gracefully than Newton could in 1700. We just trade powdered wigs for hoodies. Newton died in 1727, wealthy, famous, and by his own private admission, still haunted by how much he didn't know. Shortly before his death, he reportedly said he felt like a boy playing on the seashore, having found a few smooth pebbles, while the great ocean of truth lay undiscovered before him.